So tonight our guest is Mr. Noel de Brackinghe. I know I've known Noel for from the time of they had a studio nila Mark Lakay at ni Malik Lopez, and of course Noel even is still a music producer and a DJ. Handle nga niya DJ Salamanquero before, and I'm sure some of you know that. And now I've invited him over to talk about yun nga yung the business and even ano yung mga side steps and segue pivots na ginawa niya, especially at now, at this time baka may matutunan tayo, may mapulot tayo, and tayo rin mismo magawa natin yung something similar. We don't know kailan matatapos to, but hell, di ba? So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Noel. Oh, there you go. Hey, Noel, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Good evening.
Ayos naman. Well, thank you for taking the invite. Some of the guys, actually, there were two guys who actually suggested you when I was was planning this. So, great. Buti na lang. When I asked you, umuo ka na agad. I didn't have a problem with the first show.
Okay. So busy these days, so yeah.
I guess. Anyway, I'm just we've got millions of fans out there. Hey, Mark Lakay, kamusta? At saka si RJ Lu from Baguio. How are you? So Noel, of course, everyone, most would know you as a guy, part of the team's sound check. But again, a bunch of guys also know you as a guy who came from recording, and even a DJ. So, when did you get involved in live sound?
For live sound, live sound, I really kind of focused more on it. Basically, when I started with Soundcheck, which was about 8 or 9 years ago now,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Lose track. 8 years ago. But yeah, before that, I ran a recording studio all through the 2000s, pretty much, and really started with that. Before that, I was, I DJ'd for a while. I've always been into music in one way or another, trying to play guitar or drums or what have you. And then I got heavily invested in electronic music. And worked a lot with my partner Malik Lopez. We had a band before Rubber Ink, and we would sort of, the way we played, we would basically bring like a PA mixer on stage and connect all sorts of things to that, and so it's kind of like live mixing on stage. It's a bit weird.
Okay.
So I was always into that kind of technical side of things, like mixing things and effects and things like that, and the natural sort of evolution from that was really to go into a studio. So the studio started out more as like a home studio, just for making music, my own music, or Rubber Ink's music. And then it later, mainly because of Mark started bringing in clients, and we started really recording lots of bands, and we did all things from like the jazz world to the punk world, all these sort of niche markets we sort of captured for a big chunk of the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my first sort of real experience with live sound, I was more as just a mixer. For example, I just finished working on an album for somebody, like the Greyhounds, probably the first. And then for the album launch, they wanted me to mix it, because of course I know all the nuances of the album and things like that. So those were really my first experiences kind of at FOH, was not really knowing anything about how to set up a PA or anything like that, but more as just straight up as a mixer, which, it's okay, but it's a bit, if you just come into things like that, it can be a bit overwhelming, because there's all this new gear and you don't, who set this up, where is this, where is that, and even so, the advantage to coming from the recording background, I guess, is that generally in the studio, you spend a lot more time with things like mic placement
Uh-huh.
and trying to get really good tones out of things and things like that, rather than just like a standard fixed way of doing things all the time, which you tend to get more in live sound. So yeah, I was very familiar already with mixing, using compressors, using equalizers, different types of compressors, effects buses, reverbs, returns, delays, all of that sort of thing. So when I really started with sound, doing live sound properly with Soundcheck, it was really more that I had to learn the whole PA side of things,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just two speakers anymore. You're dealing with multiple arrays of speakers. You're dealing with subwoofers. You're dealing with all of the different ways that you need to fit that together. So in the studio, you've got this nice acoustically treated space and really nice studio monitors, and everything sounds great. But in live sound, the mixing was the easy part for me. The hard part was like, oh wow, okay, where do we put the speakers? How do we angle them? How do we set this up? And yeah, so I really kind of fell in love with that as well. It was I really enjoy. I mean, I enjoy anything to do with sound, really.
Mm.
So I really got into, and I always try to keep learning things. So it was a great opportunity for me to come in and really learn a whole new side of audio that I wasn't really that familiar with. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I got there.
So coming into the live sound arena, ika nga, ano, yung you came in with a number of skills na rin coming from the recording, your recording studio experience, and that kind of, para bang nung pumasok ka, you actually had a lot of stuff already going for you, and you
Yeah,
just had to learn this new set of stuff, like
yeah,
especially with the arrays, right? So
yeah.
kayo in soundcheck is as a FOH guy, it's not anymore. It's not just mixing anymore. You take in an organization like soundcheck, do you take charge of even the whole system and like a systems engineer kind of
Yeah, I
title?
mean, a lot of the work that I was doing before COVID was, I mean, I usually handle the foreign shows, the big foreign shows. So a lot of the time, when I'm doing that sort of thing, I'm not mixing. They bring their own people.
Mhm.
So it's a completely different skill set in a way, and that's the systems engineering. So setting up, it starts months before the show. It starts with a lot of emails, riders being sent backward and forward. Looking at what how the setup is, how they want the setup to be, where the venue will be, how big the stage is, where we're going to
Mm.
position the speakers, how they want their subs set up. Do they want them cardioid? Do they want them,
So you
So there's
become the counterpart here talaga. I mean,
yeah,
not
yeah.
just to the company, but yeah. Okay.
Well,
So
in Soundcheck, there are multiple people that handle the riders and things like that, fixing the riders. But then when it comes to the actual audio system, quite often I'll be in direct contact with the foreign team. They'll
mm,
hook me up and any concerns they have or questions or things like that. And we work through it as a process to get things the way that they want them.
pero at this point naman siguro, at this point like wala rin naman sigurong hinahanap sila na alam mo yun na wala tayo or
Well,
there are compromises sometimes along the way.
everything, there's always a compromise, like, do you want a Pearl drum kit or a DW drum kit? I
Okay.
mean, there are things like that. It's there. We might not have exactly what they want, but
Mhm.
we have very high quality replacements, which are usually acceptable to them.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think that's really an issue anymore. That oh my God, they need this. We'll see after pandemic, because the problem now is all of these new things have started to come out, like the Clang
Oh yeah, the
immersive
immersive
IEM
sound, yeah.
system, and all these new Digico engines and things like that. And I'm sure when people start touring again, they're going to start requesting all of this new gear. And of course, nobody's been buying it because there's been no money, no work, right? So we'll see. We'll see.
Oh, okay. So yung ano, I mean, so like right now, yung even like your position in sound check, it's not just about the front of house. It's actually mas ano na, mas diverse na. So even before, especially pag foreign, yeah, you
Mm.
pretty much turn over the system to them when to their liking once na magawa nyo na and they do the show for you. Ganun.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool. Kasi yun nga, I mean with the company like Soundcheck, the organization is bigger, and of course it's got to be more organized in some way para no. So talagang hindi na yung do that
Yeah,
now or do
yeah,
that
yeah.
ganyan. Okay.
Oh, no,
Um
you certainly can't make it up as you go along. It really, everything needs to be planned and
so you can't fake it.
no, no.
I guess the
I think
stakes are
I think
higher.
on my first few shows I kind of was, which is why I think Jaime was always there, kind of watching. And if I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, you know. So, yeah.
But so technically when it comes to the mixing, the what's the transition, I mean, what about mixing in a studio, how you did stuff, and then suddenly in a live sound situation, was the transition malaki ba? I mean, do you had to, okay, I have to listen to music this way, or I have to accept it na merong ganito talaga ang tunog. It's not
Yeah,
that.
I mean, sometimes, in certain venues, there's always going to be some kind of compromise if you're dealing with bad acoustics and things like that. And you kind of, but I think the main thing was, doing live sound has actually made me a better studio engineer, I think, as well.
Mm.
And it's because one of the things you have to do when you're doing live is you have to be fast. You have to be really fast. Because a lot of the time, and I mean, the shows that I love doing are the hard ones, the really big outdoor steaming hot festivals with 14 bands, and you're mixing 14 bands for 8 hours or something, and by the end of it you're just but I mean, I love that. And a lot of the time you don't get sound checks, you don't get things like that, so you just got to be on the ball all the time. How can I get this mixed together really fast, like in 2 minutes you have to
Oh
have a
yeah,
mix,
yeah, yeah. There's no
you know
take two.
and then yeah, exactly, so you can't just rewind and say, maybe I'll use an optical compressor on that, or a FET compressor, or you can't muck about, unless you get a proper sound check, which is always
Mm,
nice. But even then, you're people are waiting on you if you're doing things, so you have to be quick. And
mhm,
yeah, where was I going? You have to be quick, and I think also it's different. The first time when I'd been doing live sound for a while, and I moved back into a studio environment for the first time, it was a bit threw me off a little, because I had it was really difficult to figure out the low end, because you get used to these massive subwoofers, and you get used to being able to really feel your low end. And in the studio, even though you've got these nice monitors that can reproduce the low end, it doesn't hit you the same way, unless you're trying to crank it up to like
yeah.
make the room shake and things. So it is different. It is a different way of treating things, but I find the techniques are essentially the same. Obviously, in the studio, you can get more fiddly with things. You can use more sort of fancy tools and things like that, which you can do live as well. But it's about time, you know.
Mhm.
Like for example, using plugins live. If you see the foreign guys, a lot of the time they have all these Waves plugins on their digital mixers and things like that, of vintage compressors on their snare drum and this on that, and what have you. And that's all well and good, because with the foreign guys, they tour, right? So they build a show and then they do the same thing every day.
Mhm.
So you can save your show file. You can really tune in your mix over every show. You could say, oh, tonight I'm going to change the compression settings on my kick drum, because it's a lot of the time it's the same kick drum, the same microphone, the same mixer, the same PA.
Yeah.
That's the way they tour in the US, at least. So they really have the time to tweak all those things. And when you're working with a sound company rather than on a tour, you're doing a different show every day. So it's a completely different thing. You when you look at like the way the foreign shows work and the way they do things, you think, oh, they're so efficient, they're so effective, they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember that they're doing the same thing every day.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in a sound company, one day you're in a ballroom, one day you're in an arena, one day you're in an open field, one day you're in a small thing. So you're using a different PA every day, a different type of system. Sometimes you're using point source speakers, sometimes line arrays, sometimes. And it changes every day. Maybe you're doing a corporate event and then you're doing a rock show or,
Yeah.
it's always changing.
If I'm not mistaken, even like these big artists, ano nga, before the tour, they rent a hangar and actually pretty much set the equipment for the tour na. So parang if they actually the first day of the tour, they've rehearsed that a couple of times already. So parang they've got it dialed in, right? Di ba?
Yeah.
Ganun na rin sila, di ba? Okay. Wow.
Oh yeah, exactly. They rehearse everything,
Yeah.
beforehand, and then over every show they have time to fine tune things as well. So their show is constantly, their mix is constantly being fine tuned as they go through the tour.
Yeah. Eh, yung ano, you did mention about bands doing sound check. Para lang mahanda mo, like like a show na maraming bands, di ba? Which gives me gets me to the question na parang, do you pag meron kang mga labas nga na gano'n na masunod-sunod yung banda na iba-ibang banda, do you actually do your snapshots para to recall later, or
If they sound check, yes, definitely.
Okay, so it does really help you do yeah, just recall na lang din.
I think especially if you're doing monitors, it's especially important to store your snapshots after because it's just so many things you have to do at the same time to try and switch between bands. But FOH definitely, if you do get a proper sound check, it's great having snapshots, being able to save something, bring it back later, and yeah.
Do you keep your ikaw parang do you treat every I won't, hindi siguro foreign pero yung kunyari sa local, do you treat more or less you have this standard setup and you have like a file where this is the standard setup and then I tweak from there, or do you like doing it from scratch always?
I pretty much do it from scratch every time. Sometimes, like if I'm doing an artist that I've previously done and it's the same patch, then I like my console to be clean in the way it's laid out. So I like to have access to all the things I want. I don't like dead channels in the middle if I can avoid it. So if I recall a show file and they've added conga, I don't want my conga after my vocals. I want it near my drums. So I usually just build things from scratch because then I can get the layout I want for that thing. But when it comes to a setup, we do kind of have a standard way of doing things, and that goes all the way down to the crew. So the crew know it as well. Like we always patch in a certain way. We always start with drums, bass, guitars, keyboards, other line instruments. We always have so it depends on what is on the patch chart, but we always patch it in the same way. So you kind of don't always have to write it down. You can say, okay, we got 3 guitars, 2 acoustics, 4 vocals, and the guys on stage will kind of know exactly where that'll be set up, and it'll translate to the patch chart for FOH as well.
Okay. And it's something that you kind of like talk beforehand, or
yeah. I mean, it again with every show, you need to figure out beforehand what's happening. So ideally you get a patch chart, or at least you get the rider from all the artists, and then especially on a festival show, you figure out like a festival patch.
Oh
So
yeah.
like you'd look at, say, the biggest rider, and then try to fit the other riders into that rider, and then maybe
Mm.
add a few things here and there, so that you've kind of, your kick drum is always a kick drum, and your
Ah
instruments
yeah.
always line up with the different
Uh-huh.
bands. So that needs to be discussed beforehand, but just the way we sequence it out on the in the patch is pretty consistent,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which makes it easy to troubleshoot as well. You kind of instinctively know where things are supposed to be and where things are supposed to go.
Mm. Yeah, right. Right. But all through and all throughout, being involved in live sound, and I'm sure sometimes you've done monitors as well.
Mm.
Which do you enjoy most? Well, more.
I think I prefer FOH. I mean, monitors can be fun too because you're directly with the artist sometimes, so you get to interact with the artist a bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, at FOH, you're usually left out there on your own, and but yeah, I mean, I my frustration with mixing monitors is that sometimes people asking, "Oh, can you give me more of this? Can you give me more of that?" And then I listen to the actual mix that I'm sending them, and I'm like, "Oh, it's horrible," you know. And I want to change it, but
Yeah.
the changes that I'm making are for them, not for me. So I prefer to do FOH because I
Sabi
like
nga,
mixing
sabi
for
nga nila,
myself.
di ba, yung other guys have said, FOH, you mix for like 10,000 people. Well, and they will listen to you whatever you do naman. Okay lang naman.
Yeah, yeah.
Pero you do monitors, even though those are just 5 people. Very critical yung ano sa'yo.
Oh, yeah,
yung
yeah,
yung
yeah.
judgment sa'yo, di ba? So that's right. Pero I guess monitors, doing monitors would be challenging because there's more mixes to actually take care of, whereas in
Oh,
front of
yeah.
house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially on if you've got a large band or something, it can be, you know, kakahilo. Where am I? What am I doing? What ox is this?
Where's that?
And then suddenly you're trying to do all these mixes, and then suddenly someone says, "Can I have some reverb in my monitor?" I'm like, oh
Uh,
no. You know,
so
just
how do you think, well, especially like right now with digital mixers, tapos may mga remote apps pa, di ba? Remote control, ganun. Has that really proven to be a great tool, especially in managing the stage, interacting with the artist,
yeah.
and getting what they want, real dialed in, ganyan.
I mean, I've seen a lot of, there's a lot more bands now, local bands that are carrying their own IEM system,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are, the iPad thing works great, doing monitors from stage, and you can kind of or you can even like give control to the band member themselves,
Yeah.
control things with
Mm-hmm.
their phone or what have you if they want to. For FOH, but the problem with those things is that usually when the show starts, they all stop working. And that's because when all these people come in, the Wi-Fi spectrum just gets so full.
Uh-huh,
And even
uh-huh.
though people are not connecting to you, or the traffic in the air seems to
There.
make things collapse completely. I made that mistake once where I didn't have a position for FOH. Like it was a it was a there was a band, but it wasn't really a band setup. The band was guesting in a computer game conference thing.
Okay.
So there was no FOH.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, oh great, I'll bring a router and I'll bring an iPad and I'll just park the mixer on the side of by the side of the where the band will perform, and I can mix with the iPad out front. And of course, as soon as the band started, the iPad didn't work at all. So I was mixing down and sticking my
Yeah.
head out to see what's really going on. But yeah, I've tried a lot of those things. What I like to do is I like to have PA control wirelessly. So if you ever see me at shows, quite often you'd see me walking around with a tablet computer
Mm-hmm.
and like walking up to GA and checking out the sound up at the top. And I really like having the power to do that. So like, and again, a lot of the time, if I'm a systems engineer, while the show is happening, I'll walk around the venue and see how it sounds in all the different seats. And sometimes I'll play with levels and things like that. Maybe add some high frequency in the top boxes to go up to GA, because of course, once the audience comes in,
Oh
the
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
change. So you need to kind of be on top of that.
Oh.
But when I do that, I bring this big industrial router. It looks like a drone, actually. This huge router, and set that up, and it gives me like a kilometer of range. And that doesn't go down when the people come in. But yeah,
I'm sure one of the toys of Jaime. No, more than those yung may anim na antenna, siguro like bigger than that.
oh, this is a big industrial type thing for
Oh,
like,
okay.
you see them on like university campuses or things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Won't be surprised.
But yeah,
Anyway,
that part.
yeah. Well, I'd like to say hi first to some of the guys that are listening in. Hey, Neil Tan, kamusta? Neil Tan, and I think Neil was part of Soundcheck as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, our friend Mark Laka is there. RJ Lu, all the way from Baguio. Uh, Maderal Welly. Good evening from Dumaguete. How are you? Mark Serrano, Mr. Dwayne Fernandez, kamusta dyan? Hey, Mr. Greg Villaver. Yeah, one of the rental company owners and that does live sound as well. Albert Tolentino, Alex Garcia, and Mr. Basmayor. Extra rice. Robert Viñas, how are you? Okay, good. Thank you for being here, guys. Edward Ruiz, kamusta? Okay, so when you were I guess no, I mean 8 years. That's kind of, especially with a company that you're with, that talagang that's been busy. Pero how was it during the yeah, I mean, how was this during the pandemic? Did everything pretty much stop right away? And
Yeah.
how soon did you like did your pivot, to whatever things?
Well, I mean, we're just the same boat as everybody. The pandemic just shut us down completely. It took about probably 5 months or so before these sort of shoots started happening,
Uh-huh.
and for online content. And some, those would start up and then would be locked down again. And then, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really been a struggle. What we've done at Soundcheck now is we've converted our warehouses into 2 studios. So they're big, big spaces that you can put lights and sound systems in to do shoots for online content. So
Mhm.
that's kind of, or for TV as well. That's kind of been what's been keeping us alive recently for me. And so, but it's not, there's not a lot, and I know a lot, pretty much everybody's in the same boat. For me, I've kind of pivoted a bit back towards the studio.
Mhm.
I've been getting some studio business. So I've rebooted my recording studio, and I've been working on a few things there. So,
Oh. So good. I mean, yeah, I mean, especially if mga um, work na ganyan, pwedeng kahit anong oras, no? Gagawin mo lang man,
oh
like
yeah.
mixing songs or uh,
Mixing,
and
mastering, some recording as well. So yeah, I mean, some commercial work,
mhm.
whatever there is, really.
Whatever that is.
Yeah,
Then
take
again,
anything that
when
comes
you
my
do
way.
your shows, do you record your shows? I mean, and maybe use it for virtual sound check. I mean, what's your opinion with virtual sound check as well? I mean, is it really
Uh,
something that you could use?
it
Uh,
is. Again, you'll see the foreign guys using this a lot more than we do because they're doing the same show every night.
mhm, mhm.
So they can say, okay, I'm going to play last night's show in this new venue. And, I was happy with my mix last night in Malaysia or wherever they came from. And then they're now going to play that same mix, that same performance through the
Mhm.
PA in a new room. And it does help you get a sense of what's happening. And, obviously things will be different, but it helps you kind of tune the PA as well, because you could play back your last night's mix and kind of feel like, okay, what's the difference in the PA? Of
Mm-hmm.
course, with PA tuning, there's a whole sort of science and technique to that as well, which is separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it is good. I don't really use it, again, because I'm doing a different show every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's not that, it won't be that, it won't be consistent. So
Mm-hmm.
where we have done it, and this is something we've always, at Soundcheck, we've tried to get off the ground before, was we set up before a kind of like rehearsal space in one of our warehouses. And we're trying to get show producers and things, to get into the idea of doing proper rehearsals in like a big space, like the foreign
Yeah, like the foreign shows.
touring
Yeah.
people would do,
Uh-huh.
so that when we go into setup, like I'm usually, they'll do that, but they'll do it in a small rehearsal studio just to rehearse the band and things like that.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is to get, actually bring the tech that we will use at the show and use that in the rehearsal as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done that with a few shows, like KZ Tandingan and a couple of others. And what's nice about that is that when you do get to the venue and set everything up, you actually have a performance of the songs that you will hear that night, using the instruments that they're going to be using.
Yeah,
So,
exactly the same thing.
it does help you get a sense of what's happening, and helps you to kind of fine tune your mix, and gives you time to do that, to fine tune your mix, to say, hey, I'm really going to fine tune this compressor and get it super tight, rather than just whacking something out really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've been trying to get producers to focus on, to be open to doing that more. And it's a challenge though, because people have a fixed way of doing things, and people don't like change, and it's expensive,
Oh yeah, it's always a budget thing as well. Pag ganun. But yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. But and then all I think you were getting into live sound. Would there be any person that you'd probably look at as a mentor or something, getting to your journey into live sound na medyo mas naging mas madali?
Well, see, Direct Juno is kind of because before Soundcheck, I would sometimes freelance for Direct Juno to do FOH for him, but again, more as a mixer than as a than anything.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
you're
actually
part of the production ka. I mean the production team executing the show.
and it's through Direct Juno that I actually met Jaime. He brought me into a show to mix, and it was a Soundcheck setup for Music Laban, and that's actually how I met Jaime and found my way into Soundcheck.
Okay, okay.
Eventually. So yeah,
Ayos
I
naman.
think Juno and Jaime are really the ones.
Oh, good for you. So we do yeah, I mean, by the way, could you share some tracks when you tune your system? Could you share some tracks or what they use? And I mean, let's say if you use a track, meron ka bang certain things na hinahanap when you do your sound check with
Yeah,
your speaker system?
I actually have because of the Music Manila,
Mm.
where we would often be the ones that would set up the JBL system
Mm.
for the array shootout. I actually made I use it all the time now, because for that speaker shootout, it was like a 7-minute
Slot. Yeah.
playback
Yeah.
of different music. So I edited together a whole bunch of things. And I use that generally. So yeah, if you've ever been to Music Manila, you probably know what I use to tune my system, which is basically the Fairfield 4, which is a gospel a cappella group, which surprisingly is excellent for finding out what's going on in your low end. I also things like Steely Dan and so on. I used to use a lot, but not so much anymore. I do
Mm-hmm.
try and mix it up a bit because sometimes I get bored and I want to hear different things. Sometimes you'll hear me playing some dub or things like that to try and tune my low end. Or, but yeah, I mean, I do listen for uh, a couple. The main things are to get the low end sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some music that has a good bass response or heavy low end in it to try and figure out what's going on down there. Um, and transparency. So sometimes I also have a couple of things which are just not really music, but people talking in a studio with a guitar. And in the recording, you can really hear the air and the room, the acoustic space and the clarity of like the guitar strings being just like tapped on.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hear that air. So I like to use things like that as well because you don't usually expect to hear that kind of clarity on a PA system, or you wouldn't before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, it sounds so crisp and clean and clear, and I can hear the ambience. But I mean, PA systems these days are so good that you can really hear that transparency in things now. And so I will usually use something like that as well to check a system.
Mm-hmm.
Also, something vocal to see how a vocal is coming through on the system. I can't remember what I actually use now. And brass as well. Big band brass is
Really?
something else I like to use to check, because there can be a lot going on in that, and it can sound really squawky if your system isn't set up properly. The brass can sound really harsh and really
Uh-huh.
squawky. So yeah,
So you've
most
got your own library of like
yeah,
tracks, certain things na hanapin mo lang just to get the, like an overall
yeah,
feel of the system. Oh, okay. But
yeah.
you're not picking naman kasi I think naman, well, you of course in your company you pretty much work with one system, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So parang it's hindi naman masyadong varied yung speaker
yeah,
systems.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Pero
No,
sa bagay,
I mean, I can pretty much tell if our system is working properly just hearing pink noise now.
you probably hear it in your sleep,
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, kamusta? Wala, kamusta lang ulit tayo ng iba. Uh, uh, Christian Abatayaw, how are you? Good. How are you? Jatsolis, kamusta? Elizer Ilanan, kamusta dyan? Pa-shoutout naman daw. Okay, he's with White Carvajal. How are you guys?
Hey guys.
Hey, Paul Libid, he's probably in the other room. Just watching. Or beside you. Ay, hindi, no. In the sound check office nga pala yan. Hey, Derek, how are you? Derek Juno. Arvin Ramos. Hey, Israel Pasca, how are you? Mr. Jason Konanan. Good evening to you, sir. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, Jason, yeah, exacto. We're coming towards that part where we'd really like to get some questions from the audience. Actually, a few days ago, I posted something to just to have people, throw in some questions that I could throw to you, especially with someone with your experience. Then again, I'm already here, and I'd like to post Mr. Jason Conanan's question. He asks, can you go through a quick step-by-step process of pre-production during setup and after the show, if any?
Well, pre-prod, it generally all starts with the rider. So for us, the rider is everything. If we have a rider, we know what's a rider and a layout. Those are the two things we need. Because we need to know where the stage will be, where the speakers will go, if they're flown, if they're stacked, all of those things. So it all starts with the rider and the layout. From that, we can plan out everything from the stage layout as well, if the band has a preferred layout or the event has a preferred layout. So once we have all of those things, when we would go into the venue, we will generally lights go first. Well, rigging will go in first, and then lights will go in, and then audio usually goes in last. But yeah, we will first of all fly speakers, get all the amplifiers set up, get everything plugged in, test it. There's 3 layers of things we have to run. So power, signal, and data. All of our amplifiers are networked. So we always control our speakers with a computerized controller. So once all of that is set up, test everything, make sure every component is working. And then tuning and time alignment of subs, which generally involves using smart or something like that, and then also using music to maybe tweak it to taste. During that as well, I'll usually end up walking around the entire venue, looking for spots that may lack coverage or what have you, and maybe make some tweaks if necessary. If I have time and if necessary, but that doesn't happen very often, that we have time. And then, generally the show, sound check show. After the show, it's basically just de-rigging. De-rig, pack up. And for us afterwards, we always look for if there's any equipment that's faulty, anything that's not working, anything that wasn't working well, and put a report together that will go to our repair department so that anything that didn't we had problems with can get sorted out and doesn't happen again, that sort of thing. And
Okay. Well, at this point of technology that your system has, and the of course, nakita natin how massive your arrays could be. Like, do you still experience may nasisira pa rin ba na speaker?
Yeah.
Meron pa rin talaga. It just happens.
Yeah,
It's part of it.
It just happens. It's very rare. It's sometimes we get blown tweeters too. It does happen. So, every now and again, we really have to check every component. So, a lot of our speakers have been stored for more than a year now. So actually just a few months ago, I went through and component tested every speaker we have. So every box, that's three tweeters, 4 mid-range, 2 woofers. So it's a lot of components to check, but it does happen. And we have an in-house repair department, so generally any issues we have, we're all taken care of in-house.
Yeah, we saw that when we did with the AES, we did a virtual tour of your ISIN. Galing nun. That was a nice thing. Oh, okay. So well, thank you for that, Jason. Thank you for the question. Well, another question na madalas bring up rin was well, probably you're within the years na you're involved. I think I right now, do you still yung setups niyo ba? Kasi the question is between aux-fed subs and running your system full range, is it, what's your take on that?
Full range, because your phase relationship with your subwoofers will change depending on how much you feed via an aux. So, for me, when we set up a system, we're setting up a whole system, right? And the system should work together. So the crossover point of the subs and the full range speakers is something that we focus on, that we very specifically tune and tweak so that it's phase aligned, time aligned, and frequency aligned. So if you go through that process, your system works as a whole, right? So you can play music on it, and you'll have accurate reproduction, right? Now, if you want more bass, you could turn up your subwoofers. If you want less bass, you could turn down your subwoofers. If you want something not to go to your subwoofers, then you would just high pass it
The high
to
pass
to whatever
filters
your
per channel
process
that would.
preference.
Okay.
Yeah, but by using aux-fed subs, I mean, it's a technique. I know a lot of people still use it, and you're treating the sub more as an effect, I suppose. So you put your kick drum in there, your bass guitar in there, and not much else really. Maybe some playback tracks or things, and it can keep things clean. Because you're only sending a few things to your subwoofers.
Yeah.
But the problem is, as you change what is getting fed to them, your phase relationship will shift, which means that your system won't be accurately reproducing. It won't be an accurately reproducing system anymore. So
Uh-huh.
we always set it up like that, as a matrix rather than as an aux, and use high pass filters so that anything you don't want to go there doesn't go there. So yeah.
Yeah, you did mention about you would increase the subs or decrease the subs. Then you are talking about using your system controller. Parang
Yeah.
dadagdagan mo na lang or babawasan mo from there. Okay.
Yes, either a system controller, or sometimes we'll set up matrices on the console so
Mm-hmm.
that you can have your subwoofers on the console as a matrix send. So that actually it's usually like that. So you're like a left, right, front fill sub on your console, so that at any time during the show you can adjust your subwoofer level if you have to. Yeah, you
Okay.
can also do it with the system controller, but it can be a
Uh-huh.
bit fiddly if you're
Uh,
mixing.
yeah.
So,
Okay. So you do have a different fader for bus for your subs.
a
Um,
matrix, not an
yeah.
aux. Yeah.
Matrix. Oh, okay. Okay. But you do tune the system as a whole.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing. All right.
That's the main reason for that, is that it's tuned as a whole, not like it's a system and then some subs. So we tune it to be like an accurately a system that can accurately reproduce music in any seat that you're in. That's the kind of the concept of it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Another question well, thanks for that, and I hope a lot of our guys appreciated that question, the answer. One another question that was thrown was yung ano ba the work. I mean the complexity. I mean with regard to foreign shows or local shows, would you say magkalayo ba yan, or the expectations are they different, or pretty much like everything's become kind of like madali na lang kasi sistema na.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, compare like foreign and local
Yeah,
shows.
foreign and local shows, like
Uh,
our best local shows and the foreign show like that.
they're pretty close already. I think I don't think we're like left behind in any point. We have all the tech, we have all the LEDs, the lighting, the PA systems, and when they come here, they're using the same gear, right?
Mm.
So I it's
Probably kayo pa nga yung nag-influence na when you get hold of a local show, like a major artist, parang kayo na nga yung I'd imagine kayo pa nga yung magsasuggest na, yeah, let's do it this way, on the technical
uh,
side.
yes, to some extent. I mean, sometimes you'll have some guys who come up with some pretty crazy stage designs,
Mm.
and it's nice to have a design, but there's also you need some degree of practicality, and so when there are shows like that, we often will get consulted, and usually on a big show like that, there'll be a whole bunch of different meetings
Mhm.
to bring these issues up, and yeah, we will make a suggestion, and it can sometimes it can be very important things, like if you put that there, we can't put in like if the stage is really wide and your PA will be super wide, so you'd need to have a center cluster, for
Uh-huh.
example, to cover those front center seats, which are probably your most expensive seats, and your stage is too wide, there's no coverage there except for a little front fill. So
Mhm.
then you'll say, oh no, I need to put these speakers in, those are your most expensive seats, so I need those speakers need to be there, and maybe that means moving a lighting truss forward or back, or there's always going to be some kind of compromise. and yeah, you have to look at the big picture of the show with everybody, light, sound, rigging, LEDs and things.
Ganun.
But I think we're pretty much on par with the foreign stuff. It's just the content is different. A lot of our shows are more, I don't know what's the word, like over here we're very into this, like having hosts and lots of chat rather than a straight concert, and lots of dancers and this and that, and like a variety show almost. We have that kind of thing going on here, which you don't see so much. So it's really the content that is different rather than the technical side of things, I think.
Is there like a bad, I mean, like sa dami ng venues that you've done shows in, is there like a venue that you just want to avoid, like just bad?
Yeah, there are. I haven't been in them for
Acoustically,
so
probably.
long.
Acoustically.
I haven't been in them for so long, I can't remember which ones. I mean, I love doing shows outdoors because you don't have issues with acoustics. And you can really hear, you really get to hear and feel the response of the PA system that you're working with. So I love doing things outdoors. Bad venue, I don't know. there are venues that I also don't like for other reasons, like they take 4 hours to get home from, because of traffic and things. But yeah, there's I'm sure there are. Oh, Skydome, there you go.
Skydome.
Skydome has terrible acoustics because of the dome. If you position your speakers wrong in there, it's just a nightmare. You have to really either go high and point straight down, or really low, which seems counterproductive, but that's the only way to do that room.
But would you have again, in the span of the things you've done, did you have a show that's like memorable, like just totally funny? Like memorable dahil like things didn't go the way it should, but it just went so much na parang nakakatawa na lang talaga ganun.
Yeah, there are. Well, I can't say it was memorable because I can't remember. But there have been shows where just like everything just seems to go wrong, like one after the other, and you're just like barely hanging on by a thread, And I mean, certainly I've experienced that. And a lot of the time it's funny because you think everything's falling apart and nobody notices. Yeah. I mean, we've had situations where probably the worst thing was where the generator died in the middle of the show and the client didn't want to back up because of the extra expense.
Okay.
And what had happened, the fan belt broke on the gen set.
Oh.
So in the middle of the show, this was Araneta, the whole left side of the PA just died. Well, actually, the whole left side of everything just turned off. The stage, everything. So yeah, in after three songs, we had to rerun all the power lines to house power, which took about 20-30 minutes, and totally killed the vibe of the show. Because when the band came back on, they were halfway through their set, and everybody felt like it was just starting. So there was only like 40 minutes left, and yeah, it wasn't good. But I don't know it's funny because even when I'm doing the show, sometimes you ask me, I'd think, what was the show I did last week? And it'd be some big foreign, like Ariana Grande or something. What did I do last week? I can't remember. And they say you're only as good as your last show. So I kind of just fly through them, go in.
Got it. Yeah.
You got it planned, and then once it's done, boom, you're thinking about the next one already, So I don't know. I do remember shows, but I don't remember too much specific stuff about them because I'm always focused on what's next.
Okay. But then, so right now you're doing more pero right now you're doing more studio work, and it's a break for you in the stress of live sound versus studio work. It's just probably
Yeah. In the
better.
studio, you have this great thing called Control Z. You undo. Oops, undo that.
Okay,
And you can
that's
just
right.
hit rewind and do it again and again and again. But I mean,
Mhm.
the nice thing about live show is about live stuff is that that's it. You've got
Mhm.
one chance to pull it off. Not like in the studio, you listen to the same song for 50 times, and you're just like, oh, after a while, it gets tiring because
Mhm.
you're dealing with the same thing over and over again. In live, you get through the show, boom, on to the next one, you're done. And just try and do your best at the time rather than you know spending all this time tweaking things and fine tuning. Yeah,
Yeah, sabagay. Lalo na, if it's foreign, you just turn over the system. They do the tweaking. You're just
yeah, yeah,
turning
yeah,
over running system, and that's it.
yeah, yeah.
Ganun. Okay, so okay, Ronald Basmayor, a fellow tech, just questions. Any pet peeves during shows? I guess
um,
someone
yeah, there
someone
are.
gives you a cassette to cue.
It's funny. I have two cassette players right here actually because I just remastered something from cassette. But no, the what I drives me nuts is when roadies are constantly telling you to adjust the monitors and the band is not saying anything. Like what? I mean, I've done shows where the band is on for 15 minutes and right up until the last cymbal crash, the tech is the roadie is telling you, oh, turn this up, monitor, turn that up, turn this up, turn that up. I'm just like, what the hell, man? Yeah. And if you're doing monitors from FOH, it's really sucks because you spend the whole time fixing monitors and you can't get the band mixed together, so you're just like, just shut up already. The other thing
Okay.
that I don't mind having guest techs, when the band brings a tech,
Yeah.
sure, go ahead, but what I don't like is when there's a guest tech and he doesn't show up for sound check. So you sound check the band, and then during the show, this guy shows up and says, "Hey, I'm with the band." Like, okay, you just want a picture in front of the console, don't you? That's literally what you want here, right? You want to touch
proof
the
of
go
proof
and
of
take a
life.
photo. Look at me. But no, I can be a grumpy bastard sometimes, but generally I try to be nice.
Okay. Well, I want to say hi to some of our guys that are on right now. Hey, Angela, Mr. Razul, Angela Razul, kamusta dyan? Ronald Basmayor, Abraham Austria, hey, Mr. Bing, Danilo Abel, Michael Bren, how is it? Kamusta dyan? Hey, nakabalik ka na after the show ni Manny. Uh, Grave Casabuena, how are you? See, marami pang Noel, marami pa nakakatanda. DJ Salamangkero. Toby Pablo. Martin Paradinas, how are you? Thank you for watching. Okay. So, Nino Cabulong, how are you? Kamusta, kamusta? Okay. John Fontabala, how are you? Yeah, all right. Yeah, anyway, yeah, again, well, to kind of wrap up things, they're like as a like focusing as you're gonna do a show, you're gonna be the FOH guy. What are the three things, three tools that you'd usually have with you and you'd say you're okay? Sort of like kung lalabas ka ng bahay, basta you've got your wallet and your phone and a toothbrush, okay na. Alam mo yan? So,
Uh,
ano
um, Probably headphones. Um,
mhm.
yeah, they're pretty essential.
Yeah.
um, I don't know because I have like a show box, right? I have a Pelican, which
Mhm.
lives here at Soundcheck, and every time I have a show, they just bring it, and so I have everything in there. And that's
Mhm.
full of cables, adapters, RF scanner. I have a router in there, moon gels for drum kits, phase reversers, inline gain switches, um, a cue box, troubleshooting things, tape, um, console tape, duct tape, gaffer tape, spike tape, also, all those kind of things. Yeah,
Parang ano, you'll never run out of things that you have to stick.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes and tools. Fortunately, that all gets brought with sound check. But yeah, it's essential to have a toolkit on site as well. Soldering iron, stuff like that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Noel, for spending the time with us. It was great. Thank you so much. Great talk. Thank you.
Okay.
And by the way, if you've got any questions, lagay nyo lang, John and Noel. You could always go to the show, the recorded show, and answer some questions if you want.
I'll see that.
Get
Yeah. Once you post it
connected.
up online, I'll answer
All
questions
right.
in the chat.
Great, thank you. Hey,
Right.
guys, thank you so much. This show was brought to you by The Music Source. For Gears and Solution, check out The Music Source. Again, till the next show, maraming salamat, and we are hard of here. Thanks, Noel.
All right. Good
Thank you.
night. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.